Aren't you tired of spending 40% of your week on tasks that don't grow your business? Imagine what you could achieve if you freed up that time to focus on what really matters. Today, I'm going to show you how to break free from those $10 an hour tasks and take your business to the next level. But here's the kicker. Most business owners get this wrong, and it's not your fault. After watching this video, you'll be able to reclaim your time and supercharge your growth. Well, who am I? I'm Dozer, founder of the Geronimo Academy. And after building and exiting my own multi-million-dollar studio twice and surviving a heart attack, I now help countless boutique fitness studio owners, Pilates studio owners, yoga studio owners, and entrepreneurs achieve their business dreams without the burnout and the overwhelm, so they can live their best life. We've worked with top studios across most of the franchise networks, and now we consult into the CEOs of these franchise networks to help them grow an impressive network of successful businesses. Let's get started. So here's the time and energy audit. This is the one powerful productivity system that we give our studio owners in our Geronimo Academy, particularly the $1 million studio owners. These are the guys that really get this right. So yeah, what if I told you that hundreds of business owners that I've coached in our academy, when we've surveyed them, when we do these kind of every 3 or 4 months, we do these big summits. And when we surveyed them, the outcome from what I'm going to show you is that they said they spend 40% of their time on $10 an hour tasks. So that's basically 2 full days of the 5 days a week that they are spending on stuff that they don't want to do because it does not light them up and it does not make them money. So imagine swapping out all of that to work on the stuff that actually does make you money. You know, you get to spend more time with your family. You get to do what you love. You get to train more. You get to travel more and all that kind of stuff. So today we're going to go through this whole process called the time and energy audit, which is something that I've been doing since 2014, kind of unofficially. But ever since I've been working with Mr. Dan Martell, author of Buy Back Your Time. We'll link that book in the notes section. Awesome book, awesome guy. He's really helped me kind of like perfect this into a bit of a system that I can teach others now. So when we get through this, by the end of it, you're going to learn how to audit, delegate, and optimize for your perfect week, which is something we talk about a lot in the Academy. So you can skyrocket your productivity and build a business you actually fucking love. Because most of the guys wake up and they get dragged into this prison that they've got that they call a business because they're just not doing what they love. So anyway, first I want to kind of touch on where the biggest mistakes are that most people make when it comes to productivity. Most people think productivity or time management is about getting more done. They've got this massive list that is never ending and they're just ticking stuff off. There's no prioritization. There's no order to it. There's no critical evaluation of whether we should be doing that or not. What I'm here to tell you is the first thing is time management isn't just about getting more done. It's about getting the right things done. Because when you spend time on the low value stuff, you're missing out on opportunities that actually grow your business. And there's nothing worse than being really productive at something you shouldn't be doing. So that gets captured through this process that I'm going to show you. But the pros, like my mentors, people that you see all over YouTube, like the pros, they think of themselves as talent, like as artists. Do you think Beyonce books her own concert halls? When we talk about pro level productivity, we're talking about not just managing for time, but for energy as well. Because once you start realizing that you ought to spend most of your week in your energetic flow state, which is it's an observed, through psychology and through sort of analyzing productivity and organizational psychology and all that sort of stuff. And even with athletes, flow state is a state we can get ourselves into where we feel like we are doing our best work. Time just flies, just disappears, and that is our high leverage stuff. We need to be optimizing for that, not just for time, for what lights us up, for what brings our joy into our craft. Imagine if Michael Jordan spent his time booking his own flights, hotel rooms, organizing everyone else in the team, running his own errands. No, he had assistants, right? Or if instead of spending 4 years painting the Sistine Chapel, imagine if Michelangelo didn't actually complete that painting because he got busy running errands. He probably wasn't checking email, but whether he just got busy and he got too busy to create the masterpiece that you and I've been there and you've probably been there as well. Like there are busloads of people that get dropped off outside the Sistine Chapel to look at this thing every single day. Right now, a bus just got dropped off. Like years and years and years on. Talk about a legacy. Imagine if he didn't do that because he got stuck doing $10 an hour tasks. So this is why you're not growing and why you probably feel stuck and overwhelmed right now in your business. You're doing everything yourself. You're running from fire to fire, from task to task. There's no one else that you're kind of like bringing along the journey with you unless you're sort of getting towards the top. And if you are getting towards the top and you've almost got a business that's under management or you you have your general manager in place and you've got your heads and department in place, you're still probably doing some things. Well, let me ask you, if you're still getting to the end of the Friday afternoon or the Friday night, and when you sit down and you sort of like review your week before you plan your next week, do you sit there and go, I have spent 80% of my time this week in my green zone? If not, because that's the rating system that I give to myself when I do my Separation Sunday, which is a separate video that I'll link to. Whenever I find myself in a bit of a rut where I find like I'm not spending 80% of my time in my natural flow state, then I do my time and energy audit, the thing that I'm about to show you. Sometimes it happens, and sometimes it's just because like the business is moving through a bit of a purple patch, or we're undergoing some sort of change in personnel, or we've just tried to bring in a new system and I kind of got dragged back into the weeds of the business just in order to try and get things right. Sometimes one or two of those weeks are necessary in order to make sure we keep going forward. Sometimes you just got to do the time and energy audit and just, start releasing stuff again. The problem by doing everything yourself is you're likely not hitting your high standards or any of them, which it does for me. If I know that I'm doing everything and then our high standards aren't being met, that in itself for me creates anxiety. That in itself for me creates like just this, like a drop in fulfillment levels, because I know we could be doing better than this. And ultimately, when we start looking at your performance KPIs across your business, you start seeing that your marketing and sales are likely suffering because you're not getting to the leads fast enough. So if you're wondering why you're slow on sales, it's because you're not getting to the leads fast enough, which means they're low pickups, which means your conversion rates are low. Your marketing and sales are probably suffering as well because you're not getting to the leads fast enough. They're not picking up. Your lead gen is fatiguing because you're too busy to sit down and analyze the data, look at where your percentages aren't where they need to be. Probably too busy to refresh the creative, shoot new videos, try different hooks. So ultimately your sales are slow, which means you don't have enough money to hire the next person and get yourself out of that pain line. So let's fix that, shall we? So introducing the time and energy audit. Now, there are 3 parts of this process. I recommend you do this every time you feel constraint on your growth. As entrepreneurs, we feel it. We have a detection mechanism where we feel constraint on our growth. The most important thing here is not to ignore it, but to lean into it by doing this. There's the audit, there's the perfect offload, and then there's the refill. I've slightly changed this to what is in the Buy Back Your Time book because I think this kind of encapsulates a little bit more for us studio owners what we need to do more often. It's really important that you be honest. It is for your benefit. There's no point when we do the time audit, it's like when you ask your members to do your meal plan and they give you a full week of chicken and broccoli and you're like, I don't think that's why you're here. I don't think you're here because you've been eating chicken and broccoli. I think we need to kind of just be a little bit more honest with where things are at so that we can actually make some positive changes. This is going to also test your limiting beliefs around delegation, around people don't care about your business as much as you do, around no one can ever do it as good as you. Like, this is going to really test, in my experience, like a lot of times there's the rational exercise that we're going to go through here, but sometimes the reason why people are holding on to things is because they don't want to fucking let it go. I'm here to tell you, you are destined for great things. Sometimes you just need to let some of the stuff go that doesn't belong to you anymore. Put it into someone else's backpack. But you bring your standards along with you to make sure that you hit your standards. One of the things that Dan talks to us about is 80% done by someone else is 100% awesome. I'm going to put, only because you guys know me, I'm unfiltered, is fucking awesome. Does that make sense? So sometimes, like, if you're doing 100% of everything, you're actually not living up to your own standards that you criticize others for. So just invite a level of like, okay, actually it's better than okay, it's fucking awesome that even if someone else gets to 80%, that is fucking awesome. Okay, so just kind of come back to that. So here we go. The first thing is the audit. Now, we've got this template that we take our owners through in our academy. I'll explain this in a second. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to log the activities. So Dan talks about doing 15-minute increments, like actually doing a proper audit. We print out a worksheet and every 15 minutes, timer goes off and you write down what you're doing. Now, that's obviously sort of an extreme level, and I would suggest that for anyone that is really into data and wants to really know. But if you want to do this kind of right now, and it's Friday afternoon and you're like, I've had a shit week and this is my 3rd week in a row where I've been doing stuff that hasn't progressed my business, the sort of right now version of it is to just bring up this sheet and look at your calendar, look at your inbox, and just while it's still fresh, what have you done this week? What have you done this week? And start listing it. Bang, bang, bang. So 20 things. Don't get in your own way. Don't judge it on the way out. Don't try and filter on the way out. Just completely unfiltered. I want you to put bang, bang. What are the things that you've been doing all week that's been taking up your time and distracting you or taking you away from doing the things that actually move the needle in your business? Where have you been spending your time? The next thing I want you to do is I want you to put in the time here, how much time did you spend in the week doing that, right? So you'd write 60 minutes. So you'd write it in sort of 15, 30, 45, 60. Do it in kind of increments of 15 minutes. So you do all that. You complete that column for each of the things that you wrote down. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to, in this column here, you are going to sort of filter or mark down how many dollar signs it makes you. So like $0 sign if it doesn't actually make you money, $1 sign if it makes you a little bit of money, $2 signs is if it makes you the most amount of money. So no dollar signs, $1 sign or $2 signs. You'd put that in there. So I'd go 0, and then in this column here, the smiley face, I either want you to tick that box or put a smiley face in there or just highlight the whole thing green if it actually lights you up. It energizes you. It's what you love doing. It's why you started the business in the first place. And you're good at it. Like you just find that zone. For me, I love doing the podcast now, right? But back then when I had the studio, for me, it was like developing my team. For me, it was making sales. For me, it was creating these new programs internally within my studio to unite the community or subsections of the community around a goal. And I would create sort of 4-week programs on that and put a $99 ticket on it, which creates more money for me. And I just love getting in that creation product development phase. So that was me. Once you go through this, you've got 20 things on your sheet of where you've spent your time this week or where you tend to spend your time. You've rated it as, like you've put a time on it, like how long you do it for. You've put how much it's actually worth to you. And you've put your sort of happiness rating, like if this lights you up, your energy. This is when we talk about your energy here. So now you have a clear audit down here. You have an outcome of a clear audit of how much your week is being spent on low value tasks that doesn't light you up. So I want you to have a look at, pay attention to anything that you've marked as green because you're happy with it and it makes you money. Asterisk those. That's where you should be spending your time the most. Anything that was no dollar sign and you didn't highlight, that goes straight onto your priority list of what to offload, which we're going to go through into the next section. And how you even prioritize those is you just start with, and giving you full permission, you just start with what you fucking hate doing. You just fucking hate it. You just hate it. So start there. Before we move on, so the next step here is we're going to get ready to delegate those tasks to someone else or stop doing it. I want you to come back to this part here. Remember, when you look at this list of 20 things, if you wouldn't pay for someone else to do that task because it's not worth doing anyway, then stop doing it right now. Make a decision to stop doing it right now. On average, there's about 3 things that you should tick off this list as I just put an X. And it's like, you know what? I shouldn't be doing it and I don't want to pay someone else to be doing it because it is that worthless. Because remember what I said at the top, there is no point being really productive at something you shouldn't be doing anyway. For me, an example of that was we spent so much time back in the day stock counting protein bars and protein powder and that sort of stuff that we had on the shelves. When we had a look at, and this was controversial, this is back years now, when we had a look at how much money we actually made from supplements minus the spoilage from, protein bars and protein powders going missing or stolen and staff eating them and stuff like that. Once we kind of counted all that, we almost made $0 from having the protein up there on the wall and having the boxes of it that we had to count through. And there were rats at some stage, honestly. So we thought, you know what? I just don't think we should be doing it. Instead, there was a protein shop across the road in the big shopping centre, and we just worked out a deal with them where we'd work out like an affiliate kickback deal, which meant that I didn't have to hold any product. I was basically drop shipping supplements from the guys across the road, which meant that I didn't have to stock the supplements. I didn't have to carry the risk of the inventory, and I didn't have fucking rats in the studio. So stuff like that. I wasn't going to go like hand over the inventory and the stock taking to someone else to do, because we shouldn't be doing it anyway. So by the end of this, now you've done your audit. Now you've done your audit and you've been really honest with yourself. Now you move on to the perfect offload. No sloppy passes. If I just said in this part here, delegate your low value stuff, I've seen it before and I used to do it as well. I used to just go, hey, can you do this now? And give one person a tiny little subset of a task that they had no context over. And I'd get frustrated that they weren't doing it properly. So then not only did I have my job to do, now I had their job to do as well. Then I'd get frustrated at them and make them feel like shit. And so let's ignore all of that, right? First, I want you to decide which of the low value tasks you're going to offload first. Now, from this list, like I said, anything that wasn't green, anything that didn't light you up and didn't make you money, start there. And how you prioritize that list within the list is you start by the things that annoy you the most. Then, before you go anywhere near offloading it to anyone, I want you to create a playbook for it. Create the like I'm doing with you now. Create the playbook for it. Now, how do you do that? Is you create a simple Loom video of you explaining how to do it. Then the very next time you do it, like I'm doing with you guys now. So the very next time you do it, so you can't tell me that you didn't have time to playbook it. It's like the very next time you do it, because I know you're going to do it, Loom yourself, video yourself doing it like this. And as you're doing it, explain what you're doing and why you're doing it, right? Talk about the principles. You know, if you're a parent like I am, when you parent your kids, you're talking about principles, you're talking about values. You do that with your playbooks as well. Talk to the reason why we do things, and we'll come back to the first principles, great book by Ray Dalio, on why we do things. And also what done looks like. This is the biggest thing that frustrates entrepreneurs, as it did for me. But we've got to do our job to articulate what done looks like. Okay? So this is why I'm doing it this way, guys. Why we do this on Mondays is because of this, and why we do this, and what done looks like is this, at the end of the video. Now, this is where it gets really cool. You don't need to write all these playbooks. Okay, you do the videos and you explain via the Loom, and then give that Loom to the person you're going to offload it to. So just get it ready to give it to the person you're going to offload it to, and ask them to write out the step-by-step instructions and the success checklist, because that is and shows active listening. This helps them understand it. That's really cool, right? And then you put that in your, master playbook called the, insert your business, way. So for us, it's the Geronimo way. So I have a full playbook. We have a full playbook of everything that's in the company that we do as per our big process charts. Now, in terms of who to give it to, so this is how you do. In terms of the who, I recommend in Dan's book, Buy Back Your Time, there's a I think he calls it the replacement ladder. We've got a bit of a hiring sequence here, and the easiest and most leveraged ROI will come from offloading your admin to an assistant. We typically find through this hiring sequence that most of our studio owners in our academy and the entrepreneurs that we coach in the Unleashed Business Coaching Program save about 20 hours a week of admin, and they're being able to outsource that or sort of offload that to an assistant that they bring into their business for about $10 an hour. And do you know what they do with that hour? They go and make $750. They've worked out that they can make X amount of sales. They can generate about $1,000 an hour in sales if they're just in flow of making sales. And they've traded $10 for that. Can you hear that? Like, that is smart. That is what all the pros do. So the first thing is your $10 kind of admin and your errands. I'd give that, first thing I do is I'd bring in an assistant. And there's a difference between an offshore kind of VA assistant type or an executive assistant. Executive assistants are more strategic. They can make decisions. They can be your proxy in different meetings. I have an executive assistant, but for years at the studio, I just had assistants, right? I had multiple assistants. I lost my passwords for my membership software, and I didn't want it back because I had assistants in there. It sort of helped me not get in there, and I just asked them to run the reports and things like that. Or errands. I used to spend every month, I don't know how, but in our big studio, there was kind of an underground bit. Underground, there was like sort of, let's call it the garage. We used to call it the dungeon. But in there, we just accumulate. Like once you started buying more equipment and like everything arrives in boxes, you rip the boxes up and you just shove it in the dungeon. After about a month, it'd be like, it's too messy, and I'd crack the shits. So I'd go in there once a month and clean it all out and put it into a big skip. And I was like, why the fuck am I doing this? So then eventually I went on to Airtasker, and whatever country you're in, you know, a job site where you can just find randoms to come over and just do that for me. And it was so good. It's like, I didn't have to do it. And that half day on Friday, I then swapped that out for strategic planning of my business for next week. The next thing is that for $100 an hour tasks, you know, if your constraint here is you're getting low sales pickups and your sales velocity is low, sometimes it's because you're way too busy. You need someone else to do the sales, so they make sure that they get to the leads within 5 minutes. They call enough times. They're doing all the follow-ups. They're asking for the referrals. They're doing all the sales admin. So then I'd hire a salesperson to do that. Now, there's different videos on. Add to the comments if you'd like me to do a different video on like sales, hiring techniques and interview questions and incentive structures, so you're not having to outlay a lot of money at the start for it, and you're almost making them pay for themselves along the way. Then the next constraint you might feel underneath here is like lead flow. You might feel a constraint in lead flow because if you've got a salesperson, now they want to sell, like you've got to feed them. So if your next constraint is going to be lead flow, or setting up additional lead channels, or avatar stacking your niches. So in that way, you need to spend that time kind of doing that marketing lead gen. Or you get to the point where $1,000 an hour job is then you bring someone in that can kind of work on doing your marketing and your lead gen. I'm not saying an agency. I'm saying someone you bring into your team. You work with them more closely on the strategy, but you get them to press the buttons and optimize and manage the campaigns. Now, if you get a really good assistant, they can also do this. And then you're going to get to the point where your constraint's going to be your rollovers, your retention, your conversions from the front end program to your back end program, the engagement at the studio, the retention at the studio. That's like big dollars. And then someone else to manage this team, someone else to manage their KPIs. Now, at that point, you're ready to bring in a manager. In our program, we draw this triangle, and that's a level 3 owner. That's a level 3 owner, is when you're ready to bring on a manager that can work on these $10,000 an hour jobs, which is awesome. Like a rollover, some of our top studio owners, every time they roll someone over, it's a $15,000 lifetime value because they've tracked it through their business. It's a phenomenal business. And that, someone stays with them on average for, 4 or 5 years, moving through the different programs that they've got. So for every time you get a manager that can roll someone over and it's not you doing it, you've made 15 grand and through your development of that manager. So this is the hiring sequence that we would suggest. Again, there's playbooks underneath each of those things in our academy. Basically, as I'm going through all this, if you want help to do this for yourself, I'll have some links in the show notes to reach out to us. We'll understand a little bit more about your business and maybe we can kind of work on how we can work together on this. There is no end to this, okay? I want you to repeat this until you're happy with what you've offloaded. My advice is instead of offloading one task at a time and just being really nitpicky, offload an outcome. So for instance, if you bring on an assistant, their outcome is that, the assistant checklist is 100% complete 100% of the time. Rather than just like offloading emails or offloading calendar or offloading this one task. If you ask them to do it for you that day, it'll drive you crazy, right? And that's transactional management. You want to get into transformational leadership, which is another video that I'll do. That way you feel relieved and you can trust them. So for instance, sales, the offload is 40% sales conversion rates off all paid leads. Not, can you call this lead for me? Can you see the difference? So once you've done all that, now it's the refill. So you sort of move up the hiring sequence. Where people go wrong here is like, I know what you guys are like. You guys are hard workers. I don't think most of the thousands of studio owners that I've met and coached through the academy, none of them wanted to work a 4-hour week. Maybe one actually wanted to work a 4-hour week. But the rest of them, like, you want to contribute to society, or you've tried the 4-hour week and then you're like, you know what? It's pretty boring. I've got more in me. I want to contribute to the society. I want to make a massive impact. Well, once you get rid of these tasks, now you got to refill that time and move up the hiring sequence. So with that extra time back, fill it with your green items. Remember when we went back here and there were things that had $2 signs and made you happy? Fill it with those. That'll get your business growing again. That'll get you past the pain line onto the next constraint moment. So generally speaking, it's filling with more marketing, more sales, more team development, more recruitment, more local partnerships, more personal development, more hanging out with us, doing more strategic planning in your business and moving through the different levels of business ownership so you can actually get a business that is high valuation. You can sell it for high multiples, and you're only doing what only you can do. That's the kind of end goal. Keep refining your delegation process and reinvest time in the areas that will further your business. So I constantly refine my schedule and priorities. When I'm doing these videos with you guys, when I'm doing the podcast, as I was going through the studio, it was like when I did my marketing days, when I did my local area, FaceTime with all the different partners that I'd set up in the local area, like Humming Puppy Yoga, Eddie the Osteo, like all the different restaurants and cafes. We used to have our names on menus. People used to order, menu items our members would order menu items that had our name on it. And that stuff takes time. You can't do that if you're fucking checking your emails all day. Okay. So they're the 3 parts. So just to sort of recap, I want you to get rid of spending 40% of your week on tasks that don't grow your business by understanding what Dan Martell in Buy Back Your Time and I've been doing since 2014 around the time and energy audit. We've learned about how to avoid making the biggest mistakes when it comes to productivity, i.e. just thinking about getting more done or how big your list is, or not accounting for energy as well as your time. That's why you're growing and why you feel stuck and overwhelmed. And now we've just introduced the time and energy audit. There's 3 parts to it. There's the audit, there's the perfect offload and no sloppy passes, and then there's the refill. So I do all that in a sequence every single Friday afternoon to set me up for next week and to pick one thing off that I will offload next week. Now that you've got these strategies, it's time to put these into action. If you want personalized help to install these systems into your business and make more money, follow the links below underneath this video and let's transform your studio and take this to the next level. With that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.